Hi, yoga teachers. It's Aneta Itchak here. Hope you are doing well. I wanted to share with you this mini training on self-compassion, the power of self-compassion in trauma-informed yoga approach today. This is something that is very dear to my heart, and you might be already using self-compassion and compassionate practices for yourself and in your teaching, and it might be relatively new to you. For me, compassion and compassionate practices and self-compassion forms the core of everything that I teach. I was very lucky to be introduced to Metta Bhavana, the loving kindness and mindfulness almost 30 years ago, the same time as I started learning yoga. You know, I was introduced to it in Bethnal Green. There is a Buddhist center there, and also members of that Buddhist center also run the yoga center, yoga and well-being center called Bodywise. I think it's still running. Absolutely amazing people, absolutely amazing place. So for me, the two, the mindfulness and the compassionate practices and yoga come really closely together. They've been the core of my practice. But I wanted to talk about compassion because of what's happening in the world right now. You might know that I'm Polish. You might know that my whole family is back in Poland. I've lived in UK for 30 years almost, but my whole family are still back there. And so in times like this, we need practices to help us to self-regulate, to help us to feel more stable, to help us to feel more able to meet the demands and challenges of our daily life as something like this is happening, and take steps, proactive steps, to support and help in any way that we can. And so compassion can be one of those tools and one of those practices that we use. And we can use it in many different ways. But I wanted to start with just talking about what compassion is and self-compassion is. So compassion, most of all, is about being kind to yourself. It's about how you talk to yourself internally, to all those different parts of you that might be struggling, whether you are supportive towards yourself when you're struggling, or whether you take out a big stick and those more critical voices come in and bash you down even more. You know, compassion, self-compassion is about having clear boundaries. And there is another video, another training that I did around boundaries. You know, having compassionate boundaries, because that takes care of yourself and then that takes care of others, especially if you're working with others. It's also about being able to self-soothe. If I am struggling, what can I do to make it easier on myself? How can I look after myself? Can I be towards myself the way that I would be towards my best friend or towards my child or somebody that I really love? It's also about knowing when you need to reach out for help and say, well, I am really struggling and I feel so alone in this, and can you help me? Can you support me? Can you hold this space for me? That's a very compassionate thing to do. It's also a very compassionate thing to do because it recognizes our common humanity, our common human experience. So I really love the work of Kristin Neff, who talks a lot about self-compassion, and I really love her story and how she used self-compassion to help her in a very difficult situation in her life with her son. But we all can bring that, especially in a moment like this, where there's stuff happening. We might feel helpless around it. We might feel like we might feel a lot of uncertainty, we might feel a lot of fear and anger, but how can we look after ourselves, and therefore how can we look after other people? And so couple of tools that I really love to use that bring self-compassion? Well, one of the tools is bringing this compassionate, self-compassionate acceptance into our yoga practice and into all our practices. So when you are going through your postures or through your movement, inviting, or your breath practices or your meditation, bringing that more self-compassion and really checking in, how would your practice change if you brought a bit more self-compassion here, if you were kinder to yourself in this moment as you're doing this practice? So this can be life-changing, really, when we start bringing more self-compassion rather than being so focused in our practice on the end result of doing the pose or being able to do a headstand or being able to do splits or being able to do this really advanced pose or movement. Can we bring a little bit more self-compassion? Can we reconnect with our own rhythm and pace? So that's one way that we can use self-compassion. The other way, as I was talking about, was around boundaries. Really slowing down and checking in with your boundaries. When you agree to something, when you decide to do something, when you say no to something, when an opportunity comes, really being clear about how you feel about this opportunity or this situation before you say yes, before you say no. The other way that we can use self-compassion is through daily somatic checking in, somatic self-compassion checking in, that follows a very simple practice of connecting with your body in the wholeness of your experience, sensing within your body, so very much developing your interoception, then asking yourself, what do I need? Now I know how I feel, what do I need in this moment in response to how I feel? And then taking the last step of, what can I do? What can I do to meet my needs? What can I do to help me feel a little bit safer in this moment, a little bit more stable in this moment, a little bit more connected in this moment, a little bit more empowered in this moment through the actions that I take? What can I do? Sometimes, and you might have heard me talk about this before, sometimes we know how we feel, we might even know what we need, but we don't decide, okay, these are the steps I'm committing to taking to meet my own needs in this moment. Sometimes we don't know how we feel and we try to take steps. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. We're just trying to do all these different practices and nothing is working. Unless we know how we feel in this moment, what our inner experience is, it's very challenging or very difficult to meet our own needs. And doing this practice, I'm doing it at least 4 or 5 times a day at the moment. I'm feeling the need that I need to pause even more than what I normally do. I need to pause, I need to check in, I need to remember to notice and really connect deeper with how I am, and then deciding what I need. So one of the other tools that I always come back to, and I've done it for over 20 years, and this is the tool that I used when I learned in my first job in duodiagnosis over 20 years ago. And duodiagnosis meaning mental health and substance misuse. That was a project in London, North London, in Muswell Hill, that I did the volunteer training there, and I did, that was my first paid post in social care. And we use this specific tool that says, the word is HALT, 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 which means stop in German. And it says, when you feel, and HALT is an acronym that stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. When you're feeling one of those 4, stop. Stop and reconnect within. and just notice what it is that you feel. And again, how can you respond to what you feel? So I'm noticing at the moment, for example, that my appetite has gone out of the window because of what's happening. I know that that's one of the sleep and appetite are the first things that kind of are affected in me. And my body is quite sensitive and responds almost immediately to what's happening in my environment and within me. And so I have to remember when in my checking in, I have to say, okay, stop. It's half of the day has gone. Have I had something to drink? Okay, grab a drink before I speak to the next person, see the next client, deal with the next thing. Have a drink. Have I eaten? Have a break for food. Eat a little bit, even if I'm not feeling particularly very hungry, but knowing I need to eat because I still have got a few hours of work. I need to look after my body and myself. And so, and reaching out, the lonely thing, it's like feeling, oh my God, I'm holding all these emotions. I need some support. And I've been reaching out to my friends, speaking with my family almost daily, checking in how other people are supporting, and really knowing that I am not alone. And also, the tired, it's like my dog's been sick, really, really sick over the last 3 days. And it's like he's been waking me up in the middle of the night, and I've been worried about him as well. So my sleep, I'm a bit tired, or I'm very tired as it comes to the end of the week. And so really pacing myself. So knowing that, yes, it can be emotional. Yes, our body physiologically is responding, but there are things that we all can do to take care of ourselves and pace ourselves, get support, inner support, using our inner resourcing, but also get support from others. And all of that comes under self-compassion. The more compassionate we can be towards ourselves, the more we can then connect with others from that compassionate space, rather than from a space of anger or a space of fear or a space of resentment or whatever other emotion that comes up in response to our dysregulated nervous system and dysregulated body. So it all starts with us. This is the power of self-compassion. It's profoundly healing for us, and then it's profoundly healing for everybody that we come in contact with. And we all know that this is what we need right now. So look after yourself. Use some of the tools that I shared with you today, or other tools that would help you to cultivate self-compassion and therefore compassion for others. And look after yourself, and I will be seeing you next week. Take care.